Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally meet you because this is how we meet nowadays, with the everything remote. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, your organization, and tell us what you're passionate about.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. And my name is Mayur Motgi. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer at Ned. In my 12 years work experience, I've been part of early to mid-stage startups, as well as companies like LinkedIn, Zillow, and JP Morgan. I founded two companies in the past. The last one was a vertical SaaS product for massage centers and hair salons, which I eventually sold to another company. The reason why I usually think about building products for small businesses is because I come from a small business family. My parents own convenience and operate convenience stores. I have, in my extended family, we own Pilates studios, commercial and residential real estate. And hence, it's my passion to solve the problems faced by the owners in the small business segment. And when I say small business segment, what I primarily mean is a company which is privately owned, which has fewer employees and less annual revenue than a large corporation. So just in terms of scale, there are about 32.5 million small businesses in the US, which account for 99.9% of all US businesses. And
it's a lot higher than you think, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people think of these large enterprises, but in reality, there's so many more small businesses out there.
Exactly. And the interesting part is that they create about 1.5 million jobs annually, which accounts for about 64% of new jobs. So they are the main drivers of our economic growth by providing employment, helping local communities, and fostering that innovation which we desperately need. But one of the things which we try to solve at Ned was the lending part of small businesses itself. And when it comes to lending, the small business segment usually gets the short end of the stick.
Or no stick at all.
No stick at all, right? Like, imagine that the approval rate right now for business loans is 20%. And
I can't imagine it even being that high. That's amazing.
and unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it went down drastically. But the main thing is that close to half of these small businesses applied for a loan last year. And one of these three businesses failed because they run out of capital.
Yeah.
And it's a vicious cycle wherein these commercial lenders are looking at personal credit history for their business loan approval, and if somebody has a bad credit history there, it's impossible for them to raise money. So, and that's where Ned comes into the picture, and we want to help build a platform wherein business owners can come and raise money. And there's a semi-new concept called revenue-based financing, which sits in between the traditional loans and the venture capital investment itself, wherein when you get an investment for, say, a given amount, you are paying back with a regular share of your business income until that amount is paid off. So, so your payments are directly proportional to how much income you make. So if you say you're sharing 10% of your income, you're only paying that 10%. So if you make a very high income today, you're only still paying 10%, but if it's low, it's still that lower part itself, and it's not a fixed one. So and the best part of this is that the business still has complete ownership of the business itself. So the owner, it's a concept which is becoming common, but it's not as mainstream. And we hope that with Ned, we can make that mainstream. And the other thing which we kind of try to tackle is the friends and family funding. So, and I'm sure you and we all have come across friends and family of ours who have come to us and said, hey, I'm starting a business, or I need this much money so that I can take my business to the next. Can I help you raise money? And the interesting part is, besides the self-investment, the investment wherein the small business owner puts his own money, this is the second biggest source of capital. It's bigger than all the financial institutes. It's the second highest, and 40% of the businesses have at some point of time raised money from their friends and family. But the unfortunate part is close to 50% of them have reported a negative outcome, wherein they've lost money, or the relationship has gone sour. And that's primarily because traditionally this partnership or this relationship is very emotional. Like, you end up giving money because, hey, this is my nephew, I want to give him money.
Oh yeah. Isn't there like sayings say don't ever lend money to friends and family?
Exactly. and we want to change that, and we want to make this like less emotional and more transactional part on that end. So what we do, right, and let me walk you through how the product works right now, just the steps and how we do the most of the heavy lifting required to make sure that this transaction is working seamlessly. A person, say, who has a revenue about 250,000 annually, and he's thinking about raising about $15,000 so that he can hire the next person to take care of the summer spike. And then he wants to make sure that he has enough manpower available so that they can cater to all the clients there. So what they can do on our platform is now they can go and enter this information of saying, I have this is my annual revenue. I'm trying to raise 15%, and I want to share, say, 7 to 10% of my revenue with him on the ongoing basis. And what we will do is, based on that information, tell you how many payments will it need on a weekly basis to get to that, and what would your completion date look like. So for the example I was talking about, if somebody is $250,000 a year and has raised 15,000, with a revenue share about 10%, this will be done by end of November of this year, if you start right now. So now the business owner has this power to go and convey to him that look at how my business is doing, and we do the work of verifying your business revenue, making sure that it is what you're saying it is. So that, and we also do the heavy lifting of integrating with their banks, calculating the weekly revenue, and also making the transfers happen seamlessly. So at the end of it, what we want them to see is that they come to a platform, they sign an agreement wherein it says, I will share my revenue from now on until I pay off this amount. And if you're interested, you can give them a little bit of bonus on top of it. So it's more of like the additional incentive for the funder to put in the money. And then we integrate with their bank accounts to make sure that the partnership keeps happening. And you don't have to wait for the next barbecue or the next family get together to ask him, hey, where's my money? Right. So that's essentially the thing which we want to solve with Ned itself. And we are live right now. So the business owners as well as funders can now go to nedhelps.com. That is NEDHELPS.com to go and create their deal, sign an agreement, and handle all that stuff on their end. And we already have partnerships running right now. So we're super excited about getting more and more folks in there. And that's why I was more keen to talk to you more about this.
Yeah. Well, when I first looked at it, and I thought it's brilliant. It's a brilliant idea. It's absolutely necessary and essential. And this is exactly what we need. And my second thought was, how is this legal? Because
yes,
I've done work for banks in the past, and they're like, oh no, we can't, that's not allowed, because you've got to have certain, there's certain regulatory requirements to lend money. And I'm like, it sounds like you're able to bypass some of those.
No, so we're not bypassing it. So what the first point we want to make sure is that we are spending a lot of legal effort to make sure that this is according to the books, and we are not doing anything out of the books itself. So we have a legal team which actually makes sure that revenue share agreements are what they're supposed to be. So the way revenue share agreements work, right? You are and I'm going to use some tech jargons which are very common for revenue share agreement itself, and saying you are purchasing future sales of that company.
Okay, so it's not a loan.
No,
it's not a loan.
It's not a loan. You're saying that I want to go and purchase what the sale of this company, a percentage of that sale of this business in the future until you pay off that amount. So, if your listeners or anybody else has more questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. But we will make sure that this is according to the books. It is. And that is another interesting aspect of it, right? Most of the times when you put money with your nephew, you don't have anything legal available. So you don't have anything to stand by on it. So with this agreement, you have that, and you will be able to handle it.
So it's almost, when you think about it, it's a bit like factoring in a way, right? Because you're selling, future, or you're selling off future receivables, right? But in this case, you're kind of selling off future revenues.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it is. Yes. Yes, so you're in some way you're betting on the fact that the business is making revenue, right? And if we talk about the future of small business lending, it's the future of like business as an asset itself, right? There is an asset which is actually generating revenue. It will continue generating revenue, but this owner needs to use that asset right now to like get to the next level. And the
Yep.
best way he can do it is you can say, hey, look at this, you invest in this, and the future revenue which is coming, it's yours.
Well, I'm curious how you do the valuation. I mean, are there specific kinds of businesses that you work with and others that you stay away from? Like, for example, a restaurant. Would you work with a restaurant because of the fluctuations of what's going on, or is it more of a, does it need to be more of a solid retail location? Like, what kind of businesses do you typically work with?
Yes, so we restaurants are something which we have worked with. Uh, E-commerce businesses is something which we have worked a lot with. Event management systems, anything which has that need for a sudden funds for in terms of working capital is something which we concentrate on. And in terms of like risk assessment itself, right? And that's our key value prop, and that's what we want to be known for. It's how well can we assess the risk of the business. So what we do is we take the last 2 years of their revenue and check on how well they're doing. How does it change in terms of seasonality, and what is the trend going in that way itself, and making sure that we can say if we have house rules wherein somebody who's saying making $100,000 in revenue is not able to raise 200,000 on our platform, because that will take forever to pay for. So we want to make sure that the loan to like revenue ratio is optimal, and we think of it as a 15%, which we do not want to go about. And in terms of even the bonus you give to the funder, you don't want this to be a place where you're giving 50% of, and in addition to the whole thing. So it has to be something which is logical, does not affect the business in some way. And what we have heard more and more, the funders also realize this. They don't want to unnecessarily put this burden on the business that they have to pay for it. They want to get to a contract which gets done within a year. So the completion date helps us understand that. How much time would it take? And if it's something which is going beyond a year or a year and a half, it's too high risk for us. And we will based on that, decide whether this is the right business for us or not.
Interesting. So I went to your website and I can understand applying for assistance, right? But I couldn't figure out how to do the funder part, because if I clicked on funder, then it just sort of gave me the same form. So, I mean, what exactly are you looking for from a funder perspective?
Got it. That's great. So, so as a funder, so right now the way Ned works is you have to have both the parties come onto the platform itself to initiate the deal itself. So say now, it's a perfect example. Now, if your nephew comes to you, and I'm sorry, I keep using your nephew's name.
No, that's fine. My nephews might come to me. Who knows?
And he says, hey, Chris, give me $10,000, and I have a business which is already running. I need this money so that I can go buy some equipment so that my sales increase by 30%. Then what you tell him is, hey, I'm going to go to Ned, and I'm going to say, you need $10,000. I know what your revenue is. Say it's 500K. And I would need a bonus on this, about 5%. And it feels like something which will be completed to me. So once you do that, you fill that form, you go to the next step, you create your account, and now you can invite him. So it can work from the funder side too. So you can say, and we hope that happens more often. And we're seeing that happen because we are working with like accelerators and incubators who want to invest money in their businesses. And the way they're doing is they're saying they initiate that agreement on our platform and do revenue share. So for the case where we're talking about, you will say, I will give my nephew $10,000 only if he signs this agreement and does all these things for him, and you can initiate that from Ned.
Okay, because I thought there would be some way of me just going in there and looking at who needs to be funded. So there has to be some kind of a relationship between the funder and the business.
Yes, and the reason why that is happening is I think there are a lot of marketplaces out there wherein you can go and think about different businesses. But traditionally, what we have seen is these businesses are not very comfortable in telling people about the fact that they're raising money. They want to be very discreet about about the raise, and they have a specific set of group who they're interested in raising money from. They don't want to raise it from anybody and everybody. So that's what we are concentrating on, and we believe that is that relationship which exists already, which happens, but there have been too many negative outcomes, and we want to improve on that.
That's interesting. So how have you done analysis? I'm assuming you have, on how big this specific marketplace is, because I can understand sort of like the broader marketplace, but like the sort of friends and family funding piece of it, how big is that, sort of comparison to the rest of the market?
So we've been spending a lot of time thinking about what our TAM is in terms of like friends and family funding itself, and it is close to about $120 billion, which
Mm,
ended. So and that it that's why I said that this is the second highest source of capital for businesses right now after self-funding. So there is a lot of money, and the interesting part is everything is off the books right now, and that's
mm.
what we want to be of value and get that data and be helpful to these businesses.
Interesting. So tell me a little bit about your startup story. I mean, how did you come up with this concept? Did your nephew come asking you for money and say, "Hey, I want to formalize this," or
Yeah. Yes.
where did the idea come from?
This specific revision of the product was started by my partner Dave at the beginning of last year, when he was actually talking to business owners and asking them, um, how do you guys think about raising money? And most of them were kind of disappointed with the financial institutes, because they were like, there's a need for collateral, my credit history is bad, I'm unable to raise money.
Oh, yeah, I don't know of any small businesses who've ever been able to get a loan.
Exactly.
Period. So
Yeah, and the
it's
thing
a
is,
huge gap in the market. And I thought, well, isn't there some way we could figure out how to sort of like match people with money to people who need money? I mean,
yes,
other
yes,
than just begging or setting up Indiegogo or Kickstarter. So
yes, and I think the like the main reason why that happens is right now the loan is given to the business owner rather than the business itself.
mm,
Everything is around his personal credit history, about his collateral and how we can do it. Nobody understands that there is a business like an asset, which
yeah.
actually
Well, with
making
a
money.
small business, the asset is really the person who's running it, right? So I can see why
It is.
the lenders are looking at it that way.
Yes, that's true. But the thing is that should not be the only factor responsible for giving the funding itself, right?
Yeah,
So if you're basing everything based on a person's credit history, you're not actually looking at this as an engine which is actually generating revenue.
yeah,
And when you think about startups versus small businesses, the key difference with small businesses is they are up and running and generating revenue within a month.
hmm,
Startups are not thinking. I mean, SaaS companies are thinking about revenue from day one now, but they are not generating revenue from day one. Small businesses have a clear understanding of the business model. They know what they're selling, and they start selling, and they have revenue. So let's take advantage of that fact. Let's advantage of the fact that there is revenue being generated, and give them that fair share of the funds required, so that they can increase their revenue. At the same time, the other parties also get benefiting out of the concept. So for me, right, in terms of like, if I think about the future of small businesses, like when we look at a coffee shop, we look at it as a place where we go get coffee, and like this is the best place I usually go to, and they're a big part of our community. I mean, you and I, both of us, have specific restaurants or coffee shops which we love, and we want to go there over and over again. But imagine you can have a piece of that company, wherein you can actually say, hey, I can put $10,000 in a coffee shop, and I will get a constant return out of it. And I see a place wherein, instead of just looking as a place where you get your coffee, you're now thinking about how the business is doing, how is it making revenue, how much revenue is it making, how is it growing, and
yeah,
how you can help them grow faster, at the same time get a
yeah.
return.
Well, that's it. It's especially nowadays when there's specific restaurants who you're seeing are struggling, and you
Yeah,
go, I want to help these guys, but I don't know how to help them. But
exactly.
you can't really use your tool for that yet, because it's more of a friends and family thing, right? I mean, has it ever been used for, say, restaurants for their patrons? Have you used it in that way?
You can. So the factor it has is, you have to know that person. We are not connecting you with the restaurant. Can connect with their patrons and consider that as their inner circle itself, and go and raise money from them if they need to. It's a one-on-one relationship. It's not a crowdfunding concept. So if they
Mm,
have specific patrons who they are interested in, who show interest in the fact that, hey, I know you guys are struggling, and I want to put in some money so that you can go past the pandemic and go thrive again, they can actually sign up on our platform and send that agreement. So we do facilitate that.
okay. So can you tell me a little bit about this system? I mean, did you guys code this thing yourself? Did you bring bring coders in from outside. How did you actually build it?
Yeah, so we are integrating with specific fintech platforms like Plaid and HelloSign in terms of figuring out the agreement side of things and banking integration. We have a couple more engineers who are working with us, so they're a team of 4 right now, and we build this everything end to end. So we try to build as lean as possible so that we can get this out and learn from what we have built so far. And yeah, we're ready. We have about 4 partnerships which are going right now. Some of them went into repayment recently. So we are seeing that the product in its shape and form right now is solving that purpose, which we thought we would. And we want to take it, we will evolve it based on which direction it's being pulled towards and how the users are using it and what kind of features they request from it.
And what direction are you seeing? Like, what have you gotten any kind of feedback yet, or are looking to pivot yet, or are you still in the early stages?
Yeah, we're still in the early stages of things. I think revenue share is still the key for everybody and for business owners and funders itself. And there is a need for making that mainstream, especially when it comes to small business lending. And we feel like it might evolve into other sources of financial lending, but at the time being, we are at a state wherein we are concentrating more on getting the folks which are waiting to sign up to come and use the platform itself, as well as thinking about partnerships wherein we can work with them and bring their portfolio companies into our platform and complete that transactions.
Mm-hmm. So would you be looking at some point expanding it beyond the friends and family and making it a little more anonymous, or are you basically going to stay in that space?
I think so. I think the key we want to keep is we want it to be discreet. We don't want this to be an open marketplace where the business owner feels a little awkward about telling the world that I am raising money, because that can be misconstrued as the business in trouble and trying and leads to that predatory lender concept, right? So, but we feel like if we have a network of business owners and lenders on our platform who have completed transactions in the past, there's no reason why we cannot make it a bigger network where we connect across different business owners and lenders and go that path. And at the same time, think about like different types of financing, like line of credit and the other credit cards and stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting because it reminds me of some ideas that I came up with for one of my clients. We were talking about how in a specific geographic area, you may have some businesses that are flush some months and poor other months, and vice versa. And then somehow they could fund each other. I'm assuming you could use this system to do something like that. So if you have, if in a specific geographic location, like non-competing businesses could help fund each other just to keep each other afloat. So I'm assuming you could use the same.
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually. Yeah, and we have heard that. I mean, the interesting part is the first business owner we onboarded wanted to, as soon as he completed this agreement with us and connected his bank account, he was like, I want to be a funder for the 2 more folks who were asking me for money. Mm-hmm. So we are seeing that there are small business owners, because it's a community, right? They all want to help each other. And even if it's not across geography, it's even within the geography itself. They have the concept of helping each other and like grow. So we can totally see like business owners converting into lenders and vice versa soon.
Fantastic. So what's your business model? How do you make money off of this?
Right. Yeah. So we follow the standard the payment processor model itself, but we take a percentage of the amount which is transacting on our platform itself. So when the funds are going from the lender to the business, we take a percentage of the fee as a net fee, and while the repayments are happening, we charge again the lender a fee for transfers.
So I'm assuming it's the funder who gets hit with the fee, right? Not the business.
So right now they both are being charged the fee, but it depends on who's receiving the money. So whichever side is receiving the money is the one who's charged the fee. So when the lender is sending money to the business owner, we will take a small percentage of that and keep it as a net fee. And the same way, when the repayments are happening, the the funder will get the amount minus the little bit of net fee.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you were talking about small business, like what's your criteria? You said less than a few employees, or is there like a specific revenue per year that they need to hit? I mean,
yeah. And we call these house rules. And for us, the few house rules, one of them is they have to make at least $50,000 in revenue. They cannot raise
a month, or
a year.
A year. So 2,000 a year.
Yes.
Wow, that is really micro.
Sorry. I meant 50,000.
50,000 a year.
50,000 a year.
Okay, so that's the minimum revenue amount.
50,000 a year. But having said that, you can also not raise more than 15% of your revenue on our platform, because if it's anything more than that, we feel like it will take forever for it to complete. And then we also look at the completion time. How much time does it take for it to complete? Will it happen within a year or year and a half? If that feels like an optimal for us, if it goes beyond that, that's something which we have to think about on a case by case basis, whether it makes sense for us to do it.
And then, are there any particular businesses that you're targeting more than others, or is it just anything that falls into that range?
Yeah, so we haven't spent too much time in terms of figuring out if there are specific verticals. We'll be more inclined to it, but e-commerce is definitely something big for us. But brick and mortar stores, like event management systems, like fitness classes, anybody and everybody who's making revenue is more than welcome to come on our platform and use it. And we do the work of measuring their performance and making sure that they have enough to pay this back.
Have you had any kind of pushback from anybody on your idea, and what have you done to address it?
Yeah, I think the main pushback people have is like, I don't want to raise money. I don't want to raise money from my friends or family, and I don't want to give money to my friends. And that's what we're trying to solve. Whenever we hear that pushback, it gives us more incentive to go to tell them why you should do it on our platform. And the idea, right? It's become bad because it has led to those negative outcomes where you lost money and you don't feel good. And more than that, I think it's the emotional aspect of things, right? Here is a family member who you will meet in sometime soon, and it's going to be really awkward to talk about the fact that
you can't just avoid them.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to get to that state. We don't want. We want to help make that more of a partnership which is good for both the parties, and even in cases make the person realize that maybe this is not the right amount of money you should be raising for your business. Maybe your business is not at the right position that you can be raising that much money. So education, we feel, is a big value prop for us, and we want to make sure that first of all they understand what revenue share is, and also looking at our platform, what does that mean in terms of if you're taking that much money and it's 3 years for you to pay it back. If it's taking you 3 years, then there's something missing. There is you've not thought it through. So we feel like that's an education aspect which we want to include.
So can you describe a specific? You don't have to tell us who the client is, but can you describe one of your clients and what they did and how this helped them?
Yes. Let me take a good example. Yeah. So one of our users is somebody who actually has fitness classes, right? They actually go, they have instructors who actually go to your house or even like specific business events and all that stuff and do this, take the classes itself, and then their main expense is payroll, is in terms of the staff.
So they hire trainers and they sub trainers out to different places.
Yes.
Okay.
And with fitness, I think it's again a seasonal kind of a business wherein it has an ups and downs, right? So while the revenue does not remain constant, but they always have specific times when they need staffing. They need folks who they can quickly get into to be sent to that specific business event, corporate event, so that they can generate revenue out of it. So for this person, it was ideal in terms of thinking about the summer and saying, hey, summer is a perfect time for me to go hire this staffing, but I don't have the money for it right now. Let me go create this deal. And he was able to raise money from his within his immediate family itself, and have a clear understanding of what the terms look like, how quickly will he be able to pay that back to that person. And he had the money ready within 2 days, and he was ready to hire the person after that.
Oh, fantastic. And then that was paid off over what period?
So this is still going on right now. I think it will be done by July of this year.
Oh, very nice. Very cool.
So even before the summer is done, they're done with the agreement. They have the additional revenue, and everything is good.
Excellent. Excellent. So it really is for kind of small to micro businesses, right? Like over a certain size, it doesn't really work.
It works ideally for micro businesses, but it can work for bigger businesses too. If you think that there are folks you can raise about 100K or 200K from, one of the deals we're working on right now is a paper company which wants to buy a lot of inventory again, and in terms of the raw material required for generating that paper, and they have $1 million business, and they want to borrow 100K, and they have done this in the past from their friends and family, but they feel bad. They feel bad for the fact that the people they raise money from, they wait forever until they get the money, and they get the lump sum at the end of the day. So they're interested in actually going and using our platform to saying, now we will have visibility on how much revenue you're making every week. We'll take a piece of that and we'll send to you every week. And they feel like that is the ideal thing. And hopefully we should be able to wrap that agreement next week, so they go on our platform.
Yeah, no, I love this idea. This is fantastic. So where do you see it going? So it's year 2023.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2032. We're 10 years in the future. What are you doing? What is Ned doing in 10 years from now?
So 10 years from now, when somebody thinks about assessing a small business or a medium or large scale business, they come to Ned to figure out what is the capability, how much can this company generate in terms of revenue, and what is an investment for me if I invest in it. What is the return on the investment for me if I'm able to raise that money? So I want, like I mentioned a little bit in the earlier, I want people to think of these businesses and assets where you can put in your money and you can generate revenue out of it. So we want to be in the business of saying that we run the system which evaluates a business, that tells you what is their capability, how much revenue they generate, and what would be your return if you end up investing in it.
So would you see expanding to beyond friends and family at that point, where you'd have sort of like deals set up for other people, sort of like non friends and family, to come in and pick and choose and say, oh, I want to fund these guys?
Yeah, and I would go one step further. I would say that if we have the data, when we have the data, we would sell this underwriting software to financial institutes too, and give them an ability to connect to businesses which are credit worthy, which can actually are worth putting your money in and getting return out of it. So we feel like it's not just about opening the marketplace, but it's also about like fixing what's broken right now in the lending system, and making sure that these businesses get the fair share of the capital they need. Because lenders are sitting on a lot of money which they could not deploy because they didn't find the right business owners last couple of years.
Right. So speaking of that, are you you're only using financial data to determine the viability of a loan? Are you thinking about going into other areas as well?
Yeah, so we've thought about like adding additional parameters to it, and we will keep improving that in terms of credit history, in terms of figuring out the overall system, the standards you use in terms of lending itself. We wanted to start with business because we have a clear view of their cash flow. We understand how the business is making money. We know who the business owner is. So we will extend it based on what is the requirements and like what gets us to the state where they feel that the business is credit worthy.
But you're not looking at outside of like criteria. You're not looking at social or other like this like trust levels or anything like that. I know some banks or some financial institutions are looking at possibly factoring those things in addition to financials.
We haven't thought about it yet. I think it's too early for us to do it. I think there is enough data available with the person's financial data available, which is not being tapped right now. which can be very, very beneficial to everybody. So we want to make the most out of that data, and then we'll think about what additional information we can use.
So do you think in 10 years that you guys will have the sort of like the ability to convince banks using your system to lend to small businesses or to micro businesses?
Definitely. I mean, if we get it right, I mean, there's a big if there, but if we get this right, we are talking about the 120 billion market. We're talking about like raising all these.
Oh, it's a huge space. I'm surprised that banks haven't already started doing something in that space, but it's almost like they're hobbled by their own rules.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, they are. I mean, this is not like lenders are evil conversation, right? This is more of the lending system is broken right now. There is no easy way to get out of it because there's a standard. You follow that standard, and if you don't follow that standard, you're at a higher risk. But we feel that the risk assessment, the model should change, like how we. So that's what is big for us, and that's what we feel would be the differentiator for us, and that's why we want to be in that business itself.
Yeah. No, I love the fact that it's not really a loan model. It sort of riffs off a completely different way of doing things, and I think it's really, really brilliant, a brilliant idea. Are there other things that you could be doing as well as revenues? Would you ever think of doing, say, things like adding some factoring pieces into it or something like that? I'm just trying to see how you could possibly expand.
And you're talking about besides revenue share financing, or just besides revenue?
Yeah, I mean, like right now you're doing it on sort of projected revenues.
Yes.
Right. Yes. But there's also sort of projected accounts receivable. There's projected that, you can project a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, and there are a lot of companies which do this, and in terms of like cash advance, and in terms of there are a few startups which are coming in terms of accounts receivable and paying you like a giving you cash advance based on your account receivable itself. And that's something which we definitely think about. Like, as long as there is a business and we see that it's generating value in some way, we would want to cash onto that. A little early right now because we feel like revenue share itself is such a big pie that we can actually do a lot with it. But it does make sense to actually see wherever the business can generate value, how can they leverage it to raise more money.
Yeah. So anything else you see in the 10 years time frame for your business or for your space that you're in?
I think that's I see a fair and easily accessible lending market for small businesses, and that is our key. That is our goal. Wherein having businesses covering 99.9% of all the US businesses, they should be able to raise money. That if we get that right, I think we are very well done what we wanted to do. So even if we get it halfway through, I think we would have done our job. So the key, again, in some way, is about making sure that all this while business owners go to financial institutes, they get take it or leave it deals, and they come back disappointed. What if we flip the script? What if we say that business owner is in control? He understands what his business is as an asset and how much it generates revenue. What if he comes with the terms and goes to anybody and everybody as a source of fund and is able to get that fund back and making it a win-win for both the funder and the small business owner?
Yeah, no, I love the idea. I think it's fantastic. So thank you so much. This has been great. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, so the best way to get hold of me is my email address. It is mayur@nedhelps.com. And you can also reach out to us on the website too. So nedhelps, nedhelps.com. And I'm excited to see the folks coming to your listeners and all that stuff and giving us feedback.
I love it. All right. Well, I'll put all the contact information in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get in touch, they can go straight at you. So thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye.